There are a total of 6 art fundamentals: mark making, shapes, form, perspective drawing, color and value, and composition. Let's talk about them one by one. Mark making. Mark making basically means, well, making marks on paper. Simply put, is the action of creating any kind of mark on surface. Every single line, dots, brushstrokes, smudge, or texture that you put on a canvas is an act of mark making. It doesn't matter what tools you are using, a pencil, a pen, a paintbrush, or even your fingers. The way you make your mark will define the style and the feel of your artwork. Your mark is going to be fundamentally different from anyone else's. The pressure you apply, the speed of your hands, and the way you hold your tools. Everything contributes to your personal mark. Now, there are some fundamental differences between good mark making and bad mark making. The first difference is confidence. A good mark is bold and decisive and shows an artist's ability to get the idea across without making any unnecessary marks. Ever heard of chicken scratching? Well, these are lines that are made of numerous timid and short strokes that give it a feathery and messy look. And it happens because of a lack of confidence. And the only way to build confidence is by practicing and doing drawing exercises. The second difference is intent. Every mark must serve a purpose. Every time you put a line, a texture, or a stroke, you must ask yourself, does it need to be there? If not, then you are just wasting time and energy. If your mark isn't making your art better, means it's making it worse. Shapes. Shapes is defined as a two-dimensional enclosed area that is formed when multiple lines connect together. Shapes can only exist on a flat plane, which means they have a height and width, but not depth. You need at least 3 lines to create a shape, and a shape with 3 lines is called a triangle, which also makes it the simplest shape. You add one more line and you will get a quadrilateral, like a square, rectangle, or a rhombus. You can add another line and you will get a pentagon. With 6 lines, you get a hexagon, and you can keep adding lines till infinity. A 2D shape with infinite lines either forms a circle or an ellipse. Now, all the shapes that I have been talking about are called geometric shapes. These are precise, regular, and often man-made shapes that can be defined by a mathematical formula. Organic shapes, on the other hand, are irregular, random, and are often found in nature. You cannot predict them or define them by any mathematical formula. For example, this is a hexagon with 6 sides. Now, these shapes also have 6 sides, but you can't really call them a hexagon because they are not. A hexagon is a geometric shape, while the rest of these are organic shapes. Form. Form basically refers to the 3-dimensional aspect of an object. Unlike 2D, which only has height and width, 3D objects have volume, and they take up space. Form exists in a 3D world, but we draw and paint on 2D canvases. So for us artists, creating form is merely about creating an illusion. The better the illusion, the more believable your art will look. The way people perceive form is through light and shadow. When light falls on an object, that object becomes visible to the human eye, and the way that light creates shadows and highlights is how we perceive its form. That's how it works in real life, and our job as artists is to present this on a canvas. The first step to getting better at drawing and painting the form is to study the 3D shapes. 3D shapes can help you in simplifying the complex form into something simpler. Drawing the wireframe of an object can also help you understand its form better. Wireframe can be a bit difficult at first, but I would highly advise that you learn and get better at it because it will be very useful. And of course, lighting studies. If you wish to get at painting form, you gotta study how light works and how it creates shadows and highlights. Perspective drawing. Perspective drawing is basically a way to represent the 3D world on a 2D plane. The simple idea of perspective drawing is that as objects move further away from us, they seem to get smaller. Again, it's only an illusion, they don't really get smaller. 2 parallel lines, when seen from an angle, will seem to merge at a point. This point is called the vanishing point. Every object has its own set of vanishing points. If the objects are perpendicular to the ground plane, which is the ground that you are standing on, then the vanishing point of that object will fall on a horizontal line called the horizon line. Now, based on the number of vanishing points, there are mainly 3 kinds of perspective drawings. 1-point perspective, where you have only 1 vanishing point, 2-point perspective with 2 vanishing points, and 3-point perspective with 3 vanishing points. There are other kinds of perspective drawings, like the 4-point perspective and the 5-point perspective, also known as the fisheye perspective, but they are not as important. Value and color. I am grouping value and color together because, well, colors have their own values, and values, which are a range of grays, are also colors. So values basically means the lights and the darks, and values are represented by the grayscale, which goes from black to white. The purpose of values is to show the form of an object. Light falls on an object, creating shadows and highlights, which gives it form. and we use a grayscale to present this form on a 2D surface. Color, on the other hand, is more about style and mood. It's about evoking a certain emotion in the viewers to make them feel things. For example, red can create a sense of danger, orange can create a sense of calm, and blue can create a sense of cold. Value and color have their own purposes, but they also work together to make a whole painting. Value studies are one of the most important exercises you can do. A lot of times when people think that their paintings look bad because their colors are not correct, it's actually their values that are not working. Like, if your values are correct, you can literally put whatever color you want on it and your painting will work. And to get better at colors, you need to do color studies and also learn some color theory. Composition. Composition is all about making things like color, value, and shapes work together in a way that looks good. The goal of good composition is to guide the viewer's eye, convey a message or emotion, and create a sense of harmony within the artwork. The rule of thirds and the golden ratio are the most common composition layouts. They are simple and they work well. But there is no set rules for creating a good composition. All that matters is that it should work as the artist had intended. It's all about telling a story by leading the eye from one element to the other. The most important thing in a composition is the focal point. This is where the main subject or the main story of the painting is. There can be more than one focal point in a painting, but it is generally advised to keep it to a minimum. An artist's job is to reinforce the focal point, and there are many ways to do that, like giving the focal point a higher value contrast, or giving the focus more saturated colors, or by rendering it with a higher levels of details and refinement compared to the other areas. And these were the 6 fundamentals of art that I know of. Some artists might put anatomy drawing as fundamental of art, but I don't consider it as a fundamental. It's pretty advanced level stuff. And that's it for this video. See you in the next one. Goodbye.